Oh, there it is. Yep.
Okay. I'm Latrice.
I'm Sierra.
And Stephanie, her mic isn't working tonight, so she's going to be typing her answers and we'll be trying to discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, we're talking about the Convention on the Rights of the Child and also the videos by Parental Rights. What are your impressions of the CRC article and video by the United Nations? And what about the article and videos by Parental Rights? Do you want to attack each of those separately? About the CRC article and United Nations.
I thought it was really interesting how in both the video and the articles, these things didn't come around until the 90s. And I thought it was so interesting because we should be looking out for the child earlier than that and kind of like getting things together for the child earlier than that and have it all pass. But for it to come out that kind of late into the century after all these developmental theories and everything is kind of interesting.
Sorry, I'm trying to, my headphones kind of quit on me there.
You're good.
Okay, so thought it was all interesting because
it kind of happened later on in.
Hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I thought it was pretty interesting because I feel like in America anyway, do most of those things. So I feel like it was kind of written for other countries. And I think that's why they said, President Reagan had input into it and stuff. But because there was that concern that other countries weren't taking care of their children. But I thought that the language of it, especially in the preamble, I thought it was pretty convincing that the convention was all about taking care of children, and that it was really interesting how you have to really pay attention to the little things to catch indications of state control over your child. Really, Article 17, where it talks about the state parties recognize the important function performed by mass media, ensure that a child has access to information and material from a diversity of national and international sources, especially those aimed at the promotion of his or her social, spiritual, and moral well-being and physical and mental health. I thought that article in particular was scary because, who's the state to decide, especially right now, what is moral? They're not very good at that, especially in light of the Planned Parenthood curriculum that we learned about a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I did think that some really non-specific things within those articles that could be kind of damaging as far as state control of our children.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie said that her impressions were that we have laws that are very similar to some of those points already. And it's always amazing how different each country and culture is.
I am sorry. I'm sorry that I am joining you a little bit late, but I have some technical problems, and now I'm on air too. Nice to see you again.
Hi.
Hi, Elsa.
Bye.
So,
What are you
Elsa,
discussing? Yes. Mhm.
oh, we were just talking about the first part of the first question about the CRC, and we're just working into the talking about the parental. Are we done with the CRC?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're working on talking about the parental rights organization and the links to the videos and the things that we watched. Yeah, the parental rights. So anybody have comments they want to share on that?
Like I said, I liked how it was just all kind of coming together. Like, before, even though it was kind of like later on in the century with, developmental things and theories and all that, I feel like it's good to get it out as soon as possible, to have those rights for children so that they can be protected.
Yeah, one of the links to the parentalrights.org didn't work, or it didn't work when I clicked on it, but I started looking at some of the other articles and reading some of the things on their website, and really stood out to me was a discussion on of parental rights. They're called TPR orders, where the state issues these terminations of parental rights. All it takes is for a school to say, won't let us teach them curriculum, and so you need to either force them to let us teach them or take their kids away. And there's the article was on several cases where taking children out of their home for just really ridiculous reasons, and a medical thing where a doctor decided that the parents weren't pursuing the proper treatment for their child. Another one was where a mother didn't want to give her child medication for her ADHD or some kind of medication because it was known to cause other problems, and she didn't want to give it to her child, and so the state came to take her child away. And I just think that that's the kind of things that have CRC document, and they're using those to take children away from their parents. I think it's awful.
Stephanie
Yeah.
said that it's terrifying how vague some of the laws are, that there's a lot of wiggle room, that the parent can have no say based on how vague in the law is, since it's the judge's interpretation.
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. My impression is that parents are getting less and less right over their own children. And this is very dangerous because they cannot point out their ideas in regard to religion or any value that they want the children to follow everywhere they go, even at school. And it's sad. I see many things going on around. I cannot talk about them because this is like a confidential. And I just look and say, are the parents allowing the things to happen? Do they know about this? And I really I don't understand. I really don't understand where is the bottom line between the parents' right and the state or the government, whatever. It is something, it's very, especially me that I work in the school system, and it's hard for me to disclose things that I see going around with the students in the high school, over here, over there. I do my part. Like if I see an act that is against my model, I reprimand them. And I said, no, you're not supposed to be kissing each other's in the hallways, or, oh, well, my mother's allowed me, or I know they may be lying. I'm not sure about it, but it's very, very complicated.
Along with that, I feel like with kind of tying in with ecological systems, that each system kind of affects itself to affect the individual, which is so interesting and fascinating to me, because it just, I don't know, it just like ties everything together. So like with the article, how it, well, not the article, the video with the CRC, they were talking about all these values and all these things and these cultures, and it just got me thinking about how it all affects just this one child and affects so many more children also. But yeah.
So yeah, it is the systems, the ecological systems that we talked about. It does just show you how everything is kind of tied together. I thought it was pretty interesting how one thing affects another. So one of the next question was if we observing the effects of the CRC country. Obviously, our country has not ratified it, but were you able to find any information about other countries that have ratified it and any of the effects that they're experiencing because of it? I personally tried to find some information, and it was pretty difficult, but I did find a CRC report from the Philippines, one from Ghana, and one from Iceland. They were all pretty recent updates on their progress with implementing the CRCs. Interesting about it is that they really hadn't made any progress at all. That each report said, yeah, we haven't really done much because we're experiencing some economic adversity right now, and so haven't really done that well with our advocacy for children due to these poor economic conditions. And so it made me really wonder what power the CRC really has, and what, does the convention really do anything? I just thought that it was really interesting, and to me, it almost seems like it affects American children who has not ratified it. It seems like it affects our children more than it has helped any other children in other countries, because our courts, even though we haven't ratified it, our courts seem to be using a lot of the and using it as a reference document for some of the cases that they are implementing against I thought that was pretty interesting that these countries that I could find reports on, they haven't really done anything in the last 20 years. It's been since 1995, and they have made no progress on it, even though they ratified it. And they blame economic conditions. So I thought that was interesting. Did anybody find any other?
Stephanie said that she didn't find a whole lot, but what she saw was based on not finding information, was that it isn't really helping.
Yeah, I agree. It was really difficult to find, at least on my end, to find actual evidence of it working or not working. But just the fact that it's lack of evidence, it just seems like that's kind of proof that it's not really helping. They want it to. How did Kelly's presentation help your understanding of ecological approach to family advocacy?
Can you repeat that question again?
Sure.
Please?
So Kelly is Houghton. Her presentation that she was giving, did it help you understand what our reading about the ecological approach to family advocacy? And one of the notes that I made was that I was really inspired that there are so many things you can do at different levels. And for example, she talked about stuff in her community. She talked about helping her brother who is in her family, about the email that she had sent to the restaurant about the video, and how successful that was for her. And so it just made me realize that there are can do, but there are also little things that we can do, and it's just about being aware of opportunities around us to be able to advocate for members and for our community.
Yeah.
So what kind of connections did you see to the ecological approach to family through Kelly's presentation?
Stephanie put in really quick that it shows how much thought needs to be put into how we are advocating and what we are advocating, that we need to keep trying, and it takes just one person to start an avalanche.
Yeah, that is true. That we have to speak out and wait for the proper moment to say what is right. Otherwise, we will not change the environment. If we see things and we're quiet, let it go, but things are not going to change. Yes. And although the most important work, I believe, is done in the microsystem and mesosystem, I mean the children and their parents. This is the most important work because like I spoke about that in the discussion board yesterday, that the most important work is done within the walls of our homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
The teachers are our parents are the first teachers that we have, but the rest of the ecosystems has also a great influence among the individuals. So it works both ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
We get influenced by the other system, but we can influence the other systems as well. Now, which one do you think is the winner? The families themselves influencing the other systems, or the other systems influencing us? In my opinion, us, we are the most important ones. That the families are the ones supposed to, or the ones that will influence the most the other systems. What do you think, Latrice? Sister
I think
Morris?
I I think that our families have to, or parents have to work incredibly hard these days to counter influences that their kids have outside of the home. There's and even inside of the home with media and things like that. Just have to work so hard to be able to counter all of that.
Yep.
The So one of the questions though, so that kind of answers what system or level do you personally feel is most important to advocate? And
The
I
family.
think it's necessary that we try and advocate at any level that we have the opportunity to advocate at. But at the same time, I do think have to work super hard as parents to be able to counteract influences on our children. I have a specific example of where I was visiting teaching ladies in my ward, and her son is in middle school, and they have a teacher who is non-declared gender, I guess, and requires students in the class to use non-gender specific language in their speaking and in their writing. And it's really, really difficult thing for their kids come home and their kids are all, you know, they don't know what to think about it. And so she and her husband as parents, they have to work really hard to help their children at a young age, a strong testimony of the proclamation, the family proclamation. And sometimes we have to be one way in public and a different way in our homes, and we have to. It's hard.
Yes.
Teach. For me personally, I think it would be really difficult for me to advocate on the level that Kelly does, and that United Nations level. I especially when she was talking about going there and being exposed to just the information about the corruption and the evils in the world. I mean, just being exposed to all that, I think would me emotionally, but I think do I do feel like I can be an advocate in own community at least. I really feel like that I need to look for opportunity advocate. So that's my question for you guys. That's the last two questions is what system or level do you personally feel would be the most difficult to advocate in, but what system do you feel is the most important that you personally feel is the most important?
Stephanie said that the most difficult would be the media level because they twist words around or edit videos to suit their needs. So the macro system, I think that is?
Yeah, that's what it's the macro system. Macro system.
I feel like with all of it, it would be the macro system would be the hardest one to advocate for. But at the same time, it's also hard just to advocate for the individual as well, because in the end, it's all based on what they're going to choose, what their needs are, what they want to identify or be, you know. So.
Yeah. Is that once a law is enforced, it's difficult to change it. Very difficult. And sometimes we don't participate in the in enforcement of the law. So
I think one of the things that I've learned in the last few weeks, especially, is how many people agree with us. Sometimes it seems like the bad guys have more power or something, and I think it's just because they're louder than we are. When I post things on Facebook and post some of the links and some of the videos that we have had in class on Facebook, I'm just amazed at the people in my circle who share it and pass it along, and who, that these things are wrong. I think that a lot of me, they were unaware of some of this stuff. I had no idea that the UN, a tenth of what they actually do. So I think it's really important that we do the best job we can just to make within our reach aware of what's going on, and then they share with people, and it continues to grow. So
yeah.
I agree. Stephanie sent a smiley face.
all right, ladies, I think it was kind of short for tonight. We only had those few questions. I think, did anybody keep notes, or do you want me to just kind of do a quick summary?
Stephanie kept some notes. Oh, here they all are. Okay, so
wow.
There are the laws from the CRC are too vague. The state shouldn't have the right to impose what's moral with what they're saying recently. It's terrifying that the laws are being ruled from the judge's interpretation. And it's sad because the parent's right is being blurred from the government. Each system affects itself and the individual. The CRC reports is interesting because they report that there is no progress. And then the question that was proposed is the CRC even helping? There are little things that we can do and be aware of the opportunities around us. Don't be afraid to speak out. Things won't change if we ignore it. The parents are the children's first teachers. Family is the most important to advocate for. In the end, it's the individual's choice. Once a law is made, it is difficult to change it. There are plenty of people who agree with us, but we as a whole aren't as loud as those opposing us. And finally, people are unaware of a lot of this.
Good.
Okay, awesome, ladies. Thank you so much. Missed you guys last week. So glad everybody got to make it this week. We kept it a little bit shorter, yay. Not too, I know we had some technical difficulties, but thanks for putting up with it. I'm going to say goodbye and get out of my truck, and I will see you guys next week.
Bye.
One. Bye.